Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to have a look at another collaboration beer. So this one is half Swedish on the home side, half American on the away side. Both of the breweries involved in this one have featured on the channel before, and we have actually reviewed a couple of collaborations involving both of these breweries together before as well. Now, when it comes to the Swedish brewery, I would say that they are known for being very experimental. Back in the day, they were known for putting lots of adjuncts in their beers, but in recent times they've been doing a lot of different things and some kind of regular beers, I guess we could call them as well, and those have been really solid actually. The American brewery, on the other hand, is best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPAs, and they were one of the real hype breweries in the US when this style was really starting to take off. So yeah, always nice to return to them as well. But the beer that we're going to look at today is a style that I know these guys can both do very, very well. It's one of the latest releases from the Swedish brewery through Systembolaget here in Sweden. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review. And as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, for the home side of things, we are going to head to Stockholm, the Swedish capital, and to Sundbyberg to be precise. And that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Omnipollo. So this particular beer is called Big Puppy. It comes in at 8.6% ABV. It's a New England hazy, Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA. And this has been brewed in collaboration with Trillium Brewing Company, who are from Boston in Massachusetts over in New England in the northeastern US. So yeah, I think this is the third or maybe fourth collaboration we've had from these guys. We did have another beer from them maybe about a year ago that was called Puppy, and that was a New England triple IPA, if I remember right. It was quite a strong one, that. And before that, we had an Imperial Stout involving both of these guys too, which was quite interesting. But yeah, this beer was released as part of the Tillfällig assortment through Systembolaget toward the end of November 2022. So yeah, this should be quite an interesting one. So let's crack on and see what we have. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about both the breweries involved here before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done, both from Omnipollo and from Trillium Brewing Company, and we will hopefully be able to add more to both of those lists in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support you give is hugely appreciated. And remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer based on geography. The whole channel has a geography-based tagging system. Use the search bar and you can search for beer from your hometown, city, state, county, province, whatever. If I've reviewed beers from that area, they should pop up. And remember as well, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist and also in the Swedish playlist as well, since it is dual nationality. But yeah, let's get on then and chat a little bit about the breweries. We'll start off with Omnipollo, since they are the home brewery in this case. So, Omnipollo, as I've told you before, was founded back in 2011 by Henrik Fenty, who is a long-time home brewer, and Carl Grandin, who is a clothing designer. But the two decided to start a brewery together, having talked extensively about how insular the craft beer scene was both in Sweden and abroad. But they really wanted to do something different and reinvigorate it from both a stylistic and a gastronomic sense, and so they felt this partnership between a home brewer and a clothing designer was quite appropriate. And as you have seen with Omnipollo over the years, they have developed a very kind of unique style of brewing in some ways, and also a very unique style of art as well. But the name Omnipollo is derived from omnipotent chicken, so Omnipollo, pollo Spanish for chicken, and these guys were gypsy brewers until 2020. They opened the Omnipollo's Hat in Stockholm quite early on in their history. This is a collaboration with Pizza Hut. You can find many exclusive Omnipollo beers there, as well as getting some really good pizza. That is somewhere that I do need to go and film an out and about video at some stage. But yeah, I think it's about 8 taps or something they've got there. But in 2019, they also opened up another bar in Hamburg, down in Germany. That year as well, they opened one in Gothenburg, but I believe that has been closed now. And they've also got a bar these days in Tokyo, over in Japan. But in March of 2020, they announced that they were going to open their own brewery at Sundbyberg in a former church, which had previously been home to Sundbyberg brewery, and this is now known as the Omnipollo Church. But apparently the brewing capacity started off at around 100,000 litres of beer per year, but they've scaled it up so that it can produce around 600,000 litres. They do brew a number of their beers at Totul City, over in Svinninge on Sjælland in Denmark as well, because of course they do have quite a good relationship with the guys at Totul, and yeah, a number of their IPAs are brewed there actually. But as of November 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 375 different beers. As I said, they brew mainly between the Omnipollo Church in Stockholm. They brew a number of their beers at Totul City as well, and I think there are still a few of them brewed at De Proefbrouwerij in Lochristenhoeve in Ghent, or near Ghent in Belgium as well. That was where they were brewing most of their beers when they were still operating as a gypsy brewery. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Omnipollo for the moment. As I said, these guys are mainly known for their big kind of adjunct stouts back in the day. If you want to try some of those, I would recommend the Noah. That's fairly easy to get a hold of. Try something from the Bianca series as well, the Lassie Gozas, those are awesome. And yeah, these days, in recent times, they have been doing a lot more lagers and kind of straight up IPAs, which have been very good as well. So yeah, just try some of the Omnipollo beers and see what you think. These guys are one of the best known Swedish craft breweries, in fact. But yeah, that's it for the Swedish side of things. Let's go on to the American side then. So, Trillium Brewing Company. So as I've mentioned to you already, Trillium Brewing Company are based in the Boston area in Massachusetts in the northeast of the US, New England. And Trillium opened back in March of 2013, and the company was founded by JC and Esther Tetro. So apparently Esther and JC started out brewing a couple of beers to celebrate their marriage, but they enjoyed it, and so they decided they wanted to do this as their main profession, and their beers got very good feedback as well. So the brewery was originally based in the Fort Point district in South Boston, and there they had only a 10-barrel system, but this site has since been upgraded to 2005 to produce 2,500 BBLs per year. I was reading that wrong. But they also have a secondary facility at Canton as of December 2015. This is a 16,000 square foot facility, and it operates with a 30 BBL brew kit. But in 2016, the brewery began canning their beers, and this also helped them distribute their beers a little bit more, but it really made them become quite sought after. And like I said, when the New England IPA was kind of kicking off in the US, these guys were one of the big names when it came to that style. You know, you had Trillium, Treehouse, you know, the likes of Lawson's Finest Liquids, you know, Hill Farmstead, Alchemist and things like that. These were the guys who were really known for kicking off the New England Hazy IPA in the US. But in the last couple of years, they've continued to expand, and in 2017 they opened a seasonal beer garden on the Boston Greenway, and they've got a rotating food truck schedule there, so maybe that's somewhere to visit when I make it out to the US, hopefully next year. But they followed this in 2018 with a new 3-floor brewery and restaurant in Fort Point, and then a tap room in the Fenway area, very close to Fenway Park, of course, home of the Boston Red Sox. Been there once before, it was quite interesting, saw my first live baseball game there. But their Canton tap room was moved to a new site on Royal Street the fall in 2021 as well, and this overlooks the Blue Hills Reservation, which is meant to be quite pretty. But like I say, these guys they've done a lot of expanding over the last couple of years, and they say that is their main challenge, to manage this expansion and do it successfully. But as of November 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 570 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I said, they are known mainly for their New England Hazy IPAs, but they do a number of other things as well. I have had a couple of stouts from Trillium, and they've been quite nice, and I guess when I go over to the US next time, we will need to try and make sure we look at a few other different styles from them as well. I always like trying different styles from a brewery that are known for one thing. It's always cool to see how they do other things as well. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Trillium Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages, of course, to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that they've got done. You can check out some of my other reviews as well. I did a bunch of their beers back in 2018 or so, if memory serves me correctly. But yeah, let's get on and have a wee look at this beer itself then. That's your brewery history. So as you can see, the artwork on this one is pretty straightforward. The handiwork of Carl Grandin, of course. It does look pretty nice. You can see plain silver top on the can there. Incidentally, this one is a 440 milliliter, I can hardly read this because it's so shiny, that's the thing. Yeah, it does look pretty good. This one, does it say? Just tell you a little bit on the side. It says, for this collaboration with our BFFs JC and Esther at Trillium, we decided to bring out something extra special from our hop fridge, Riwaka hops. They have a strong edge of passion fruit due to the notoriously low yield of this variety and high demand, it's hard to get a hold of. Please enjoy this absolute tribute to the hop, enthusiastically crafted at our church brewery on Sturegatan at 41 in Sundbyberg, Sweden. Omnipollo.com. So yeah, quite hard to read that actually, just because of the colour of this thing. But yeah, there we go. So yeah, this one, as we mentioned earlier, comes in at 8.6% ABV. It's hop with Riwaka. This is a hop I've had a few times in New Zealand. I've had it a few times, and I tried it originally in New Zealand. I think it was Behemoth Brewing Company that I had a Riwaka IPA from. But yeah, it's a lovely, lovely hop. It gives you about 4 to 6% alpha acid. Quite a difficult one to cultivate though. As I say, it gives you like a kind of passion fruity and mango note, but it's also got a little bit of a kind of lemony edge to it actually, and quite a big green component from what I remember. But yeah, beautiful hop this one, so quite cool to definitely quite cool to find this in one of the Omnipollo beers. So yeah, 440ml can. This I paid, I want to say 60 Swedish kronor for this. So that is €6, somewhere in the region of £5.50 sterling at the exchange rate today, and maybe about $7 American, just for those of you watching in different places. But yeah, let's get this guy out. We'll get on with the tasting and see what we have. This should be very interesting. Definitely curious about this. This looks great. You can see this is just a big opaque bastard, this one. It looks good. So we've got maybe about 75%, 80% of the beer in the glass now, and I have to say it does look pretty good. So before the head disappears, you can see this one poured with about a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say, kind of perfect white head. You can see it's just faded away to be a nice kind of thin foamy layer on top, and it does look pretty nice. So you can see the bubbles on the side of the glass there. You've got a really nice kind of, yeah, you've got medium-sized bubbles in there, which look pretty damn good actually. So yeah, that has just faded away to be a kind of thinner foamy layer, but it does look pretty nice, as I say. So in terms of colour, this is certainly one of the more pale New England IPAs that I've come across in recent times. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts you put into the beer, of course, will affect the colour too. But when it comes to IPAs of pretty much any description, you know, you don't really have to care about that. You don't really, you don't often barrel age a New England IPA, of course. But yeah, it certainly looks the part. This one for me, it really reminds me of like a kind of pineapple juice. It certainly has that more kind of pale colour to it. But 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the top, the bottom of the head there. But it does look very, very nice. This one is really hazy, very, very opaque actually. I think it does look really nice. So remember, the colour, the haze in these beers depends on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree the yeast as well. But appearance wise, this one is definitely one of the more soupy and gloopy ones that I've come across in recent times actually. But other than that, I don't think there's anything else we need to say about the appearance of this beer. Not much in the way of visible carbonation, as we said earlier, just a little bit. But yeah, let's take a wee look at the aroma of this one then and see what we have. Yeah, that does smell pretty nice. Yeah, this is a big, smooth, creamy New England IPA for sure. As I've said to you before, there are 6 elements I think you need to think about with New England IPAs. The farmhousey yeasty character, the rye leaning grains, those are a bit more prominent in American brewed IPAs in my experience, New England's I should say, but there's also wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and the sweet side of these beers too. This one for me really is leaning towards a more oaty, kind of creamy part of the New England spectrum. It's got a nice kind of floral green component to it, and yeah, you've got lovely big juicy tropical fruits in this one. So yeah, Riwaka is really shining out in this one. I love the smell of this hop. You know, it really is a treat to get the Riwaka in this one, for sure. To get Riwaka generally, as I say, it's quite hard. and probably most of the crop is taken up by the New Zealand brewers. I need to get back down there and do some filming in New Zealand. Beautiful place, of course. But yeah, aroma wise, this one is absolutely lovely. Yeah, I think this goes together really, really nicely. Beautiful beer. Let's break this down though and just, describe the aroma for you a wee bit more in depth. So of course, the backbone of this beer, you do have a little touch of that kind of fresh white bread crust in there. It almost smells as if it has the kind of flour. It almost smells as if it has the flour on the side there as well, which is great. So love that. Lovely little bit of kind of fresh white bread crust, and the flour is in there as well. So yeah, the way that goes together is very, very nice. Yeah. So lovely little bit of fresh white bread crust, wee bit of flour in there. Soft kind of fluffy white bread. And I do, yeah, soft fluffy white bread. I do like how that goes together. There's a little bit of barley malt in there. Of course, it's actually, it's kind of interesting. It's not the most dense of white breads that I've come across, but it just goes together. So it just goes together really well. This beer, it's kind of recognisable. I've had sort of malt bases like this from Omnipollo before, but as I say, it just always strikes such a chord with me because it's like that. It really reminds me of the fresh white bread that I used to get in Germany. But yeah, soft, fresh white bread crust, soft fluffy white bread. You can smell the wheat kind of thickening this beer out as well. So you get a lovely smoothness out of the wheat in this one. There is a wee touch of wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose there. But you can really smell that the wheat is acting more as a smoothing agent in this beer. But on top of that, you've got the lovely kind of oaty creaminess to this one. I do wonder if there's a wee touch of Golden Promise in this. Of course, it's a very popular malt to use when it comes to these New England IPAs, but the oats in this one are lovely and creamy. Oats, of course, are an indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. The creamier they are, the fresher it is, the drier they are, the older it is. You can tell that both from the aroma and the flavour. But yeah, this beer is really interesting. It really has that kind of oaty, slightly porridgey edge to it. There's a little touch of sweet component to this one. I mean, you do get a little bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy thing out of this one, but it really isn't that prominent. This is more of a kind of oaty, creamy New England IPA rather than anything else. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the malt base. It's actually very straight shooting, but just really nicely done. So let's look at the hoppy side of the beer. As I say, you can tell that this one relies mainly on late addition and dry hopping because the green component is quite bright. It's not overly kind of deep and dank. There's not really an earthiness to this beer, which is quite interesting. There's maybe just a tiny little bit there, but you've got a lovely big kind of wet floral character to this one. So yeah, lovely big kind of wet floral notes to it. You've also got a good little bit of kind of grassiness in there as well, and the grassy character is more along the lines of the grassiness in this beer is more along the lines of, say, like wet, freshly cut grass. It's kind of like that. So yeah, that is lovely. On the fruity side of things, pardon me, if you know this hop, you'll know that you're getting kind of exactly what you should from this one, if we can say that. But yeah, there's just took that in the wrong way there. There's a little bit of that kind of lovely soft juicy passion fruit in there. Of course, it's soft and juicy, but at the same time it's quite pungent. And you've got little notes in there. There's a little bit of kind of a papaya apricot-y sort of thing. There's no real mango in this one, which is interesting. Mango's always quite bright and quite juicy. So yeah, for me it's a smooth passion fruit you get out of this one, but it's still a bit pungent. Wee bit of apricot and kind of papaya notes underneath. And then yeah, you do get just a little touch of a kind of lemony zest at the front of your nose with this beer as well. So yeah, I do really like how this beer goes together. I think it smells very, very nice. Yeah, aroma wise, it is pretty good. So let's get this guy out, the rest of it out into the glass, and we'll taste it. So as I always say, take a wee bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. But yeah, it's time to taste this one. So this is the Big Puppy, a collaboration between Omnipollo in Stockholm and Trillium Brewing from Boston. So yeah, let's get stuck in. Sláinte, Skål, cheers. 8.6% ABV, Rewhack of hops, New England Double IPA. Can't go wrong. Oh yeah, that is pretty damn solid, I have to say. As I've said in many reviews, you know, there's so many New England hazies out there these days. It's kind of hard to be blown away by the style, to be honest. But this is pretty damn good, I have to say. This is really nicely done. And this is like what I was saying to you earlier. Omnipollo, of course, were famous for their big adjuncty beers back in the day. But they were always good when they tried the more kind of pure brewing stuff like this. But they have been doing more and more of that recently, and they're just getting kind of better and better at it. But that's a really solid New England Double IPA for me. I think this is really nice. So, yeah, this is as I was suspecting from the aroma. It really is quite an oaty leaning. Creamy New England IPA. The fruits are soft and juicy. The green component's nice and wet. It does have a wee bit more wheaty character to it as well. That's where I would say that it diverges a bit from its aroma. But like I say, it's a really nicely done. It really is a very nicely done New England IPA, this one. Yeah, this is awesome. So let's break this down and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth then. So, middle of your palate, you can feel that nice kind of fresh white bready, white bread crust backbone there. That just forms, as I say, the backbone of the beer. On top of that, I'd say actually the fresh white bread crust, it has a little bit more presence to it, but it has a little bit more presence than the aroma, but it's still quite light and crisp. So fresh white bready bread crust there. It feels like it's got a little bit of the kind of flour on it, like it's freshly out the oven. You do get a little bit of that out of this one. But then on top of that, you start to get the kind of white, there is almost a little bit of like a slightly wholemeal brown bready character to this one, and that comes out the further you go into the aftertaste. So you've got the bread crust, the wholemeal brown bread. This one doesn't really have so much of a crackery note to it, which you can sometimes get in these beers. So yeah, bread crust, wholemeal brown bread, then you've got a taller layer of like a light, fluffy and airy white bread to this one. So yeah, that goes together really nicely. So yeah, on top of the white bread, you can feel the wheaty layer there just kind of densifying everything. So the wheaty layer thickens the whole beer out, and you start to get a little bit of bitiness out of the wheat as well the further back on the palate you go. Then above all of that, you have the kind of oaty creaminess as you go down the middle line, the middle of your palate. You've got that nice kind of oaty creaminess coming out of the beer, which I really quite like. And then as you move out toward the edge of the palate, as you move out toward the kind of edges of the palate, you've got a bit more of you do get a little touch of dryness out of this one, but as I say, this beer is very, very fresh, so you can feel that in the oaty creaminess, which is nice. So yeah, the wheaty layer kind of thickens the beer out, gives it, it's quite smooth at the same time. It's got a little touch of bitiness to it, but then yeah, the oaty creamy layer sits on top of that, and yeah, it gives you just a little touch of dryness at the edge of your palate there. On top of all that, if you go to the dead centre of your palate, there's a little circle there. So you've got a wee circle there, and it's more of a kind of Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. So yeah, the way that goes together is really nice. So yeah, you've got that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing in the middle of your palate, which is quite nice. And as you move out toward the kind of edge of your tongue there, you can feel there's a little touch of an almost kind of biscuity character there as well on top of the the oats, and that comes out a little bit more the further into the aftertaste that you go. Like I say, this is one of these beers, it doesn't really do anything kind of surprising when you consider the style, but it's just really well done, and it's actually quite straight shooting in a lot of ways too. But I think that covers the middle third of the palate in this beer. In terms of the back third of the palate then, so the border region between middle and back third of your palate, of course, you get a little bit of bready build up in there. The base of the back third of your palate is a little bit more, you've got a little bit more of a kind of bread crusty character in there. You do get a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker kind of thing on the back third of your palate too, but then you've got the brown bready layer, which feels a little bit more, a little bit taller and a little bit more airy. Then you've got the kind of white bready layer, so you get that nice, as I say, you get that nice kind of just airy, fresh, white bready character in there. Then above that you can feel the wheat, and the wheat does give you a little bit of spiciness on that back third of your palate too, which is great. So yeah, a little bit of wheaty spiciness there. Then above all of that, you can feel the more kind of yeasty esters coming off the beer. And this beer, it kind of does, the more that I drink of this, you get more, you do get a little bit more kind of wheaty bitiness out of the beer, and some of the green components actually in there as well. You can tell it's very fresh in that sense. It's maybe, because there is a little touch of hop burn to this one. There is a little bit of that kind of green dustiness, if you like, to this beer, so maybe it needed to mellow just a little touch more. But yeah, anyway, we'll come back to that. On top of that wheaty layer though, you get a few of the more kind of airy yeast esters. There's a little bit of farmhousey bread, a little bit of honeycomb, stuff like that. But yeah, on the back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is definitely taller. Then as you come further forward, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together. So yeah, the way that this goes together, I think, is very, very nice. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Malt base in this, as I say, is really nicely done. I like the way that Omnipollo do their New Englands actually. And this one's kind of right up my street, I have to say. Let's go on to the hoppy side of the beer then. Back corners of the palate, you do get a nice little bit of earthiness in there. So yeah, wee touch of earthiness, nice big floral aromaticity to it. As I say, this one, I maybe should have let this mellow a little bit rather than drinking it right away. It is very, very fresh because you do have just a little touch of the hop burn to this beer, but you can feel as you come, you've got a little bit of earthiness there, and as you come further forward, it does get more and more kind of floral and spicy, if you like. Around the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. There's a wee touch of zestiness to this one as well, which you would kind of expect from Rwaka. Rwaka, I remember, did have quite a bright zesty green component, but in fairness, the overall vibe of this green component is actually quite wet, and it's like, it's like wet, freshly cut grass. That's kind of what I'm getting with this one. But yeah, I do like how this goes together. Yeah, the thing to remember with these beers, of course, is that there are 3 types of hoppings. Early edition hopping within the first hour of your wort boil gives you mainly bitterness. Late edition hopping, last half hour of the wort boil, a little bit of bitterness, but mainly flavour and aroma. Then you've got the dry hopping after that. That is only flavour and aroma. New England IPAs tend to rely on the latter two, whereas West Coast IPAs use all 3. Not unheard of to use early edition hopping in New Englands, of course, but it's a bit less common. But yeah, the reason that this beer will rely mainly on late edition and dry hopping, and that's one of the reasons why the green component is very bright rather than deep and dank. But yeah, I think we've said everything we need to about the green component of this beer. Let's look at the kind of front third of your palate and the fruitiness. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again, you get a little bit of a bready build up there. The base of that front third of your beer, there's a wee bit of the bread crust, the smooth white bread, and a bit of the kind of oaty creaminess in there as well. So yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. And the fruitiness in this beer, yeah, pure Rwaka. It's lovely. I've not had a single hop Rwaka beer in such a long time. And as I say, I do enjoy these. So yeah, at the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little touch of that more pungent passion fruit, but it really mellows out as you come further forward toward the middle of that front third of your palate. And of course, you've got little flavours of kind of apricot and like papaya and things under there as well. And the apricot and the papaya kind of spread into the front half of that front third of your palate, but you can feel that little bit of an almost kind of lemony, zesty character in the front half of the front third of your palate there as well. So yeah, the way that that goes together is really, really nice in this one. Yes, stronger passion fruit, as we say, stronger passion fruit. Nice little bit of kind of more mellow passion fruit than apricot, papaya, and things like that. Then a wee bit of lemony zest in this one. I think that covers the fruity side of this beer quite well. It's quite, again, this is one of these beers that in many ways it's quite straight shooting. It's not a surprise when you consider what style it is and things and all the stuff we've had before, but it's really nicely done. So I have to say thumbs up to both Omnipollo and Trillium for this. They've pulled off another nice New England IPA here. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the flavour there. Let's round off with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So mouthfeel wise, it's definitely kind of top end of the yeah, I would say this is top end of the kind of mid-bodied, top end of mid-bodied part of the spectrum. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It's really a kind of creamy and smooth New England IPA, this one, rather than anything else. IBU wise, I think this is, it's 30 or 40. It's quite standard for the style. Of course, you put a little bit more hop in as you go up to double and triple and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I think this one's fairly standard, about sort of 30 or 40 IBUs. The malt base is very, very smooth. It's got a nice creaminess to it, as we've said, and also a little bit of sweetness. And then, yeah, you've got those kind of juicy, fruity characters coming out of the beer as well. So, yeah, I really like how this beer goes together. I think it's very, very nicely done. So it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, this is pretty nice, I have to say, and yeah, really cool to try Ruwaka again. It's a hop. I remember trying it for the first time and just thinking, damn, this is really cool. And I'm sure it was that beer was from Behemoth, or something like that. I need to look that up now. But yeah, I remember trying a Ruwaka single hop West Coast IPA when I was actually in New Zealand in 2015, and it was lovely. So this has been a little bit of a treat in that sense. When I got this beer, I didn't know that it was Ruwaka hops. I just knew it was, Omnipollo and Trillium new IPA. Pick it up, and it certainly hasn't disappointed, I have to say that. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been really nice to review once again. So yeah, this was the Big Puppy, an 8.6% New England Hazy Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA with the awesome New Zealand Ruwaka hops. Yeah, try this one for yourself and see what you think. But really enjoyed trying this one. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Omnipollo and Trillium as well, and we will no doubt return to these breweries in the near future. But again, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out the brewery's social media, and there will be more reviews very, very soon. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.